Hey, we're back at the topic in today, still in the 43rd week on the road to Pokemon Sun and Moon. We're nearing the final week on this long road, and the final days in the 6th generation of Pokemon. So what I wanted to do before we get to the barricades to Alola lifted was to share all my favorite Pokemon from each type, as a lot of my favorites have switched around since the 6th generation started. We're not only listing them out, but they will also be ordered by favorites. Pokemon here are picked by their primary typing as well. I just wanted to put that out there. Of course, this is entirely opinion-based, based off of experiences and looking at the design. If you don't see a Pokemon that you think should be here, please don't end my career in the comments section. But, with that, here are my favorite 18 Pokemon, one from each type. In the 18th slot, we have the Ice type, and the Ice type has always been a good offensive type. The one that has always stood out for me is MAMOSWINE. I used one in my X version at the start of Generation 6. I remember nicknaming it Garunda, telling my friend that I decided to use one, and he thought I was stupid. I kind of agreed, but then I felt as dumb as a post after when I learned that his attack is higher than the sun. Okay, I wouldn't go that far, but while this thing is a menace competitively, as a lot of my draft league teams get wasted by this thing, it helped me defeat Diantha for the very first time. In the 17th slot, we have the Rock type. Not very many Rock types caught my eye, but one did.
And his name is John C.
Ha, not really. It's actually Tyrantrum. My first competitive Tyrantrum is actually the one that sticks out the most. It was a shiny female 6 IV spread Tyrantrum, and I can already hear people typing in the comment section saying how I hacked it. Why are they suspicious? Well, because that Pokemon with those stats are incredibly rare. The gender ratio on fossil Pokemon is a 12% chance of being female, but to get that with a 6 IV spread and have it shiny makes that even more rare than a shiny Vespiquen. I'll let you know that it wasn't hacked, but rather it was shiny value abused. If you don't know what that is, basically you are given a trainer shiny value number, and an egg is also given an egg shiny value number. If an egg matches that number to your trainer shiny value, it will hatch shiny on your game. But if you trade it to a different game that it doesn't match, it will not hatch shiny. I still have this Tyrantrum to this day, but it's not my prized Pokemon. But Justice the Tyrantrum will live on in Generation 6. In the 16th slot, we have the Steel-type Aggron. Now, not a lot of Steel-type Pokemon I actually seem to like. My battle style has been all over the place, but in the last year, I've been trying to wear down the opponent to strike with a final blow. Mega Aggron with Filter, I felt the most comfortable using to do this. In the last 2 draft leagues I was in, I was trying to draft for Mega Aggron, and got sniped. Both seasons, in fact. Yeah, that felt great. But what felt great was, before then, I had a Mega Aggron known by Chancellor. And I'd like to say that he laid down the law. How, may you ask? Well, with Heavy Slam. Now, I don't know about you, I would never want to get hit super hard by an Aggron using Heavy Slam. I'd probably die. Or just be brutally injured. However, not only that, but someone who has used regular Aggron made me appreciate this Pokemon a lot more. Cooper Kushiro using it in the Global Battle Association made me terrified of the AGG Ron, the boss god Aggron. It's 6 O's and swept a lot of people. It will give you nightmares. Just ask Tom Z, coach of the San Jose Sharpedos, on how he feels about it. In the 15th slot, we have the Fairy type. Of course it's this low. It hits my favorite type for super effective damage. My favorite Pokemon, though, of this type is Sylveon. For a while it was Florges, but I realized as of late, Florges is too passive in battle. But in comes Sylveon like a walking delicate tank. I've had Sylveons take many hits and dish out heavy damage in return. My favorite Sylveon is Slayer the Sylveon, though even though it doesn't have Pixelate, I just love that nickname. It was my first Sylveon. There's a reason though, because Slayer wasn't just a delicate Pokemon. Slayer stomped Pokemon flat with one blink of an eye. In the 14th slot, we have a Pokemon that rose up these ranks back in the X and Y metagame. This Pokemon is Chandelure. See, back in the X and Y days, I had this core called the Duo Core. The Duo Core was 2 Pokemon that worked off of each other's weaknesses. The thing is, The other half of the dual-core is higher up the list, so unless you saw the top 6 X and Y Pokemon Wi-Fi battle, you won't know what that Pokemon is, unless you skip ahead, of course. I'll explain more about the dual-core there, but Sea the Chandelure was a force to be reckoned with. If that's not a teaser, then I don't know what is. In the 13th slot, we have the Bug type, and my favorite Bug type is, of course, Scizor. A lot of Bug types are rather fragile and forgetful, but Scizor wasn't. Red Lightning to Scizor was always there to make sure it hit first with Bullet Punch. Even though he was a part of the 0-10 Hax-filled Pokemon Global League Season 3 of the Seattle Staraptors, he was still a threat that people had to prep for. In the 12th slot, we have the Dark type. A lot of people seem to like this type, and I don't blame them. We have Pokemon such as Weavile, who is stupid fast, and stupid strong. As long as you don't tap them with your fingers, they'll stay in one piece. Equinox and Weavile actually spent the longest time on top of the BattleSpot Champions high score list, until another Ice type took that spot because apparently nobody knew what Vanillix could even do. But everyone knew what Weavile could do, yet he still reigned at the top for so long. And he is rightfully one of the best BattleSpot Champions entries that I've had. In the 11th slot, we have the Ground type, and this is a Pokemon that has been climbing quickly as of late as my favorite Ground type. Hippowdon is said Pokemon, and my word, are they reliable. I drafted Notorious the Hippowdon in the Pokemon Global League Season 3, and once again in Season 4. I found myself using him as a crutch most of the time. If I didn't, I'd be getting flattened by 6-0s left and right. When you know you have that one Pokemon you can always count on to take a hit, you know it will climb up your favorites list. In the 10th slot, we have the Dragon type with HAXORUS. HAXORUS didn't do much for me in the 6th generation, as it's still riding the wave from the 5th generation. However, Kill Switch the HAXORUS definitely left a mark on a few battles that I had back in 2015. I remember slapping a band on it and watch it absolutely decimate teams that weren't prepared. Do you remember the FUN song from SpongeBob, right? Well, take Plankton's version, and that's what you get when people went up against Kill Switch the HAXORUS. In the 9th slot, we have the Normal type, and my favorite Mega Evolution from Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Lopunny. Now, Lopunny wasn't even on my radar in the X and Y metagame, but oh man, did Oros change that. When I found out it was getting a Mega Evolution, it sort of piqued my interest, but when I saw the Fighting type added on, I nearly died. Figuratively. If you don't already know, Fighting type is my favorite type. So now you understand. I used Uptown Funk, the Mega Lopunny, all over the place back in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. You name it. Wi-Fi battles, BattleSpot Champions, Draft League Wi-Fi battles. This Mega Evolution was all over the place during my time on Oros. We'll see if Uptown Funk will still give it to you in the 7th generation. In the 8th slot, we have sort of a tie. Oh, not for type. That's the Poison type. But it's hard to see which Pokemon had the biggest impact on me during the 6th generation. Nidoking was always a reliable Pokemon to choose, but I think it barely falls short to Dragalge. For some reason, I saw Dragalge and died. Figuratively. Stop thinking I actually died. I'm not that morbid. Maybe it's because my first hatch shiny in Generation 6 was Koryu the Skrelp, then later became the Draco Dropper himself. So yeah, I'd say Dragalge edges out Nidoking by a Draco. In the 7th slot is probably something very surprising. It's the Water type, and it's Samurott. Now, that's not the surprising thing, of course. Samurott was never on my radar, or even on my sonar once we kicked off our journey in Kalos. This part might take a while, so you better kick back and enjoy the ride. So, back when I originally started my channel, my mascot was Gallade. That's where the name of the channel came from. My Gallade in White 2 is nicknamed Gearheart, as I was trying to think of a unique name that I could go by, and could either pick that, my White Gallade Galloway, or my ex-Gallade Jericho. In the end, I went with the lesser used of the three, but I saw other people with Gallade mascots, and I didn't want to blend in with the other channels. I wanted to have a unique mascot, and after I took a break from YouTube back in April through June 2015, I wanted a new start. A new mascot. So I went to look for a new Pokemon that kind of kept the same theme that Gallade had, but at the same time that everybody had forgotten. I remembered how poorly everyone thought about the Generation 5 starters, and I went with the one that actually chose when I originally played back in Generation 5. Both games, in fact. And here we are now. Duat is basically rocketed to the top because it means so much to me. But it had to be Samurott because I wouldn't be cut dead bringing one to an OU match. Samurott, help me out! Ah, there you are. Oh, right. I nicknamed you Hitsugaya back in X. Ah, well, he's the NU water type I leaned on 90% of the time. The 6th slot goes to the fighting type, and this one goes to a very popular Pokemon. It goes to Lucario, and I seem to like this fighting type out of all the others because of its versatility. Not only is it reliable with coverage, but also priority moves. I didn't use Lucario often in the tail end of Generation 6, but early in the spring of 2014, Lynch the Lucario did some work for me. Too bad I stuck it in the Ubers box, and I didn't adjust its moveset the following summer, so he's just sitting there with his dust collection. In the 5th slot, we have the best starter in all of Pokemon. Please do not hate me for that statement. We're all biased by our first starters. Same can be said for our first captures, but I'm not touching Ledian with a 10-foot pole in this video. But Typhlosion is my favorite starter, and like I said, it's all biased. Of course, this is the fire type. I did forget to type that in the script, and I'm going off script right now. But regardless, I soloed Pokemon Silver with him in my very first game of Pokemon Silver, because I wasn't old enough to grasp the concept of building a team. Hey, don't blame me. I was still a young child. But in Generation 6, getting access to Flashfire definitely put Silver the Typhlosion up a few notches, as it could switch in on a lot more stuff. Too bad it gets the participation ribbon in the infamous 0-10 Hacksville Pokemon Global League Season 3 team. Woo! In the 4th slot, we have a Pokemon that I liked a lot even before it became my Draft League format team mascot. Staraptor has always been my favorite flying type, and I know some people would say I'm breaking the rules because it's primary normal, but hey, only 3 Pokemon are primary flying: Tornadus, Noibat, and Noivern, and I feel it's necessary to bend the rules for the flying type. But Starcade the Staraptor was a key component for my time in the 6th generation. From a flying wrecking ball destroying everything in its path, to a counter to a Conkeldurr and the Lithio Battle Association. This thing came in handy time and time again. Or should I say wingy? Nope, that's just a terrible pun. Back in the trash I go. Let's see if I can fit in here along with these ice cream cone wrappers. In the 3rd slot, earning bronze, we have the Electric type. Now this Pokemon owns the title of not only my favorite Mega from X and Y, but my favorite Mega Evolution. Entirely. I don't know about you, but being able to intimidate a foe and skedaddle on out of there quickly thanks to its high speed earns it A+ in my book. Actually, it earns so many pluses that I need an extra page. But there's more to Manectric. Manectric was actually another hatched competitive shiny of mine. I'll never forget it. I'm watching one of Shady Penguin's battles in my sister's room, as that's the only room in the house that I can plug, or rather I could plug my console up to a TV and still get internet at the same time. Hey, times are tough 2.5 years ago. Sort of. But out hatches a blue Electrike while I'm watching one of Shady Penguin's X and Y Wi-Fi battles, and it was carved in history. Since then, Static Major the Manectric has been intimidating everyone it lays its eyes on. Yo, that spine is definitely intimidating. Don't get me wrong. Hey, you really think it's not intimidating? Hey, meet me in the battlefield right now. Generation 7. Count on it. The Grass type takes Silver, and as my favorite Pokemon out of all the numerous Grass types, Roserade takes that title. Remember back a few parts ago where I said there was a certain core called the Duo Core? It had 2 parts, and the first part being Chandelure? Well, this is the second half of the Duo Core. Roserade and Chandelure was a pair I'd use a lot during the summer of 2014. Why they worked off each other so well. Actually, I have some examples. I would keep running into a lot of Scizors, Charizards, and Azumarill during said summer. See how the Chandelure had Flash Fire, giving me confidence switching into a fire move off of my Roserade. But the real fun was with Lilymon the Roserade. Not only did it have Giga Drain and Sludge Bomb, but forcing out Azumarill into Scizors was where I had the most fun. Now, Lilymon had a trick up her sleeve, and as said Scizor would set up a Swords Dance thinking they had a free turn to do so, oh boy were they mistaken, as Lilymon struck back right after with Hidden Power Fire, and they were completely torched. For some reason, these two became among my favorites during Generation 6. Kinda like how HAXORUS and WEAVILE were the two that climbed to the top in Generation 5. It only makes me think, who will be the two that climb during Generation 7? Ooh, we'll just have to see. And taking home the gold is my favorite Pokemon of the Psychic type. It should be no surprise that this favorite Psychic type, and my favorite Pokemon overall, is Gallade. I'm not sure where it came from though. Back in Generation 4, when I battled my friend on Pokemon Battle Revolution via Diamond and Pearl and later Platinum, I always tried to claim Gallade. I'm not sure what caught my attention about Gallade. Perhaps because it was green? Maybe it was because it was a fighting type. Honestly, this was 8 years ago, and I'm not exactly sure what made me like Gallade this much. It's probably, actually, why I like the fighting type so much. And about 80% of the time, my Gallades also carry Drain Punch, my favorite Pokemon move. I mean, Gearheart the Gallade has Drain Punch, and it definitely came in handy for me while running Assault Vest. Of course, I can't call you Gearheart anymore, as in Generation 7, SAMUROTT will take that role, but you will be remembered by getting the name Heart. You will always be known as the original Gearheart. 4 years ago, you made your debut as Gearheart in Pokemon White 2. But 8 years ago, you climbed your way to the top, and haven't fallen off yet. We'll see if any Pokemon from the 7th generation challenges you for this top spot. Congratulations, Gallade! And with that, we continue on the road to Pokemon Sun and Moon. Although the road is becoming fairly short as Sun and Moon is just over a week away, as we've been on this road for 43 weeks, we still have just a few more stops to get to before we reach our destination of Alola on the promised day of November 18th, 2016. Alola, where we will have new friends, new Pokemon, and new Pokemon nicknames, as well as, more importantly, new Pokemon experiences. It only gets better from here. Don't worry, we are almost there. So if you enjoyed this video and are excited for all these new experiences, go ahead and show some love by dropping a like from the top. Don't forget to subscribe for the final stops on this now short road to Pokemon Sun and Moon, as well as our final stop. But with that, I thank you for watching and hope to catch you back at the top later on, because that's how you do it. I deserve to be in the trash after that jump. If this thing falls on my 3DS, I'm going to cry. Oh, it's falling the other way. Why did I forget? Why? That's just gonna be the title. Ah!